All right, let's jump right into this explainer and uncover the microscopic true crime story of a pathogen that literally hid in plain sight for centuries. We usually think of infectious diseases as being pretty straightforward, right? You define the disease, you find the culprit, and boom, case closed. But sometimes the criminal is an absolute master of evasion. Today, we're looking at a fascinating little organism that turns a simple drink of water into a highly coordinated biological break-in. There's the saying, high in the fresh mountain air is Giardia Infection's home, and honestly, that perfectly captures the sucker punch we're talking about today. Picture it. You're out hiking, you come across this cool, refreshing mountain stream, and it looks absolutely pristine. But that beautiful, undisturbed water? Yeah, it's actually the perfect hideout for a tiny, incredibly resilient menace, just waiting for its next victim. So what exactly hides in the coolest, most refreshing water on Earth? It's a question that sets the entire stage for our heist narrative. Because taking a sip of that untouched water might just introduce you to a microscopic master thief. We're talking about an organism that doesn't just passively float into your body, but meticulously dismantles your cellular defenses to steal your nutrients. Chapter 1, a 350-year cold case. Let's see how this parasite managed to dodge a guilty verdict for 3.5 centuries. Just look at the absurd gap in this timeline. Way back in the 1660s, Antoine van Leeuwenhoek, the very first person to ever visualize tiny creatures with a microscope, actually found this organism in his own stool specimen. Fast forward to 1859, and a brilliant pathologist named Dr. Wilhelm Lambel formally describes it. Yet, the World Health Organization didn't officially convict it as a disease-causing pathogen until 1981. Crazy, right? Why the massive delay? Well, because this thief is incredibly variable. A lot of people harbor the organism with absolutely zero symptoms, which sparked a century-long heated debate over whether it was actually causing illness or if it was just, an innocent bystander. Chapter 2, Anatomy of a Thief. To pull off an intestinal heist of this magnitude, our microscopic culprit needs some highly specialized, frankly bizarre equipment. Take a look at this mugshot. Our culprit has an incredibly unique anatomy. It's a single-celled animal, but man, it comes heavily equipped. It has 4 pairs of flagella, so 8 in total, that help it scoot around in this very distinct motion that scientists describe as looking like a falling leaf. It's got 2 distinct nuclei staring right back at you, but its absolute greatest asset, that would be the large ventral disc on its bottom side. This structure acts exactly like one of those Windows suction cups you press a plastic hook onto. It uses this disc to latch onto the wall of your upper small intestine, and it absolutely refuses to let go. Chapter 3, the intestinal heist. Now, let's map out exactly how this microscopic break-in actually goes down once the organism successfully gets inside you. The whole invasion process happens in a rapid sequence. It starts out in the external environment, where Giardia survives as a tough, oblong cyst. Think of it as a microscopic, armored getaway vehicle. Once you swallow it, your stomach acid actually does the parasite a massive favor by ripping away that hard cyst wall. The fully formed organism emerges, deploys that suction cup we just talked about to grapple onto the lining of your upper intestine, and then begins to aggressively feed and reproduce. But here's the thing. It doesn't just passively sit there absorbing food. It actively sabotages you. To unglue your host cells, Giardia produces these enzymes called proteases. Think of these like biological crowbars. They forcefully break down the protective mucin lining of your cells, damaging the surface so that your hard-earned nutrients just freely flow out for the parasite to feast on. Oh, and it gets worse. Our own cells use proteins called tenasins to stick together, right? Well, Giardia actively manufactures a specific kind of tenacin that does the exact opposite. It basically chemically pries your epithelial cells apart, causing them to lose their stickiness. This essentially cracks open the vault and releases even more stolen nutrients for the parasite to engulf. What's absolutely fascinating here is that this massive release of nutrients doesn't always have to be traumatic. If things go well, the host and the parasite might actually exist without any noticeable symptoms. The real damage often relies on accomplices. The severity of your illness heavily depends on the specific bacteria already hanging out in your own gut microbiome. All those leaked nutrients attract your natural gut bacteria. So if you happen to have aggressive, naturally inflammatory bacteria in your gut, they swarm the area and your symptoms become drastically worse. And because Giardia reproduces so incredibly fast, very quickly, masses of these little devils form a literal living film. This physical mass crams into your upper intestine, actively interfering with your body's physiology and essentially acting like a roadblock, blocking your intestinal wall from absorbing the vital nutrients you need to survive. Chapter 4. Masters of Disguise. Now, obviously, all this theft and cell damage naturally alarms your immune system, which leads to an incredibly clever microscopic cover-up. This triggers the ultimate cat and mouse game inside your gut. Your immune system spots the intruders and immediately starts firing secretory IgA antibodies at them. The goal is to coat the parasites so they can't function and then flush them out. But Giardia has an absolutely ingenious defense. As soon as your body creates an antibody that successfully attaches to a surface protein, the parasite essentially puts on a new disguise. It literally changes its surface antigens to a brand new protein that the antibody doesn't recognize. Your body has to start all over again from scratch, buying the parasite plenty of time to establish a long-lasting infestation. Chapter 5. Beware of beaver fever. Let's look at the actual toll this whole heist takes on the human body, an illness commonly known by a rather quirky but very accurate nickname. Just a few dozen. That is literally all it takes. These cysts are remarkably resilient, capable of surviving for months in still, cool water. And it only takes swallowing a few dozen of them to become fully infected. When you consider the microscopic size we're talking about here, a few dozen is practically nothing. Now, there are a bunch of different strains of Giardia out there. Luckily for pet owners, the strains that infect dogs don't generally jump to humans. But for some reason, the strains that infect beavers are perfectly compatible with us. So if a beaver poops in the water upstream, those viable cysts just float right down to you. And that is exactly why drinking directly from a pristine stream can so easily leave you with what is famously called beaver fever. The physical aftermath of this infection, which is clinically known as giardiasis, is wildly variable. You might just have some mild discomfort, a bit of bloating or flatulence, but it can easily escalate to severe cramping, marked diarrhea, and, because the parasites are literally physically blocking you from absorbing fats and vitamins, a devastating 20-pound weight loss is absolutely not unheard of. While it's usually not life-threatening for healthy individuals with good diets, this disease is absolutely devastating in impoverished countries. When you combine it with poor nutrition and other pathogens, it can cause severe stunted growth and developmental abnormalities in children. Chapter 6. Evicting the Parasite. Finally, let's explore how modern medicine actually manages to catch and evict this elusive culprit once and for all. So you might be wondering, why is Giardia so incredibly hard to diagnose? It's a really great question, especially considering how many of these mass-reproducing parasites can be living inside you, completely altering your physiology without you even knowing for sure what's causing your distress. The answer lies right in its survival strategy. The organism receives a biological signal, possibly the attachment of your own antibodies, which tells it to form a hard shell and turn back into a cyst to be expelled back into the environment. But these cysts are shed intermittently. You don't just pass them constantly. This means doctors have to play detective, requiring patients to collect multiple stool samples over several days just to finally spot the thief under a microscope in the lab. It's a lot of work. But once it's finally identified, the standard medical eviction notice in developed countries is an antimicrobic drug called metronidazole, which is widely known by its trade name Flagyl. Usually after just a few days of this highly targeted treatment, the parasites are totally cleared out and you are back to being as good as new. But hey, a crucial medical warning to remember from our sources. If you are treating this parasite with Flagyl, you absolutely must strictly avoid all alcohol. The drug and alcohol do not get along at all, and mixing them will cause some severe and highly unpleasant side effects. Seriously, don't risk it. So what you should really take away from this explainer is a profound respect for nature's clearest waters. Things aren't always as pure as they look. We've traced the incredible biology of an organism that managed to evade science for 350 years, uses biological crowbars to steal your nutrients, and literally shapeshifts to dodge your immune system. Next time you're out hiking and feeling tempted by that crystal clear stream, just ask yourself, are you willing to risk an encounter with a microscopic heist artist waiting right there in the water?